Thanks very much, Paddy, and thank you to Women's Health Victoria for the invitation to be here today. I'm delighted to be here and to have the opportunity to talk about the issues for women with disabilities. This section of the program is the audience participation section. Don't panic, I'm not going to get anyone to get up here and do something on stage, but I just want you to take a moment now to have a reflection. And I've swapped across with Adele, because I think this is kind of the appetizer, and Adele's going to come with the main course. So if you're comfortable closing your eyes, close your eyes, settle yourselves down, and I want you to picture a woman with a disability. This woman comes into your mind, and I want you to think about where she is, what she's wearing, and what she's doing. Just have a look at what she's doing. Okay. And when you're ready, open your eyes. That was the first part of the audience participation. Now I want to ask you a series of questions, and I just want a show of hands. So, excuse me, I've got a cold at the moment. Put your hand up if the woman that you visualised was a mother caring for children. That's good. Put your hand up if she was Aboriginal. Show of hands if she was lesbian. Was she employed? Hands up if she was employed. Very good. Is she a newly arrived immigrant? 2. And how about her disability? Did she have an invisible disability? Could you see her disability? A few. Thank you. This audience is a group, you're all working mainly in the human services area. So as a group, we would expect that we would have an understanding of diversity. And I practiced this exercise out the other day on our trainers who are working in gender and disability training. Some of whom are here today. And a similar sort of response was what I saw just then. That the majority of us tend to think from the major dominant paradigm of the white Anglo-Saxon and generally able-bodied, but in this instance we were focusing on disability. Our sexual preference, we tend to think in terms of the dominant paradigm, heterosexual. And it's quite complex when we try to think outside that very powerful socialisation that we've had. But this is what intersectionality is all about. Intersectionality is about understanding that disability might be a disadvantage, but there are many women, when we talk about disability, there are many women that have other disadvantage. When we talk about women from the country, rural women, we could have asked for, how many were rural women, and some of you would have because you come from the country. But on the whole, we think very much urban-centric, heterocentric, Anglo-Saxon-centric, you get the point. And when we try to move beyond that, it becomes incredibly complex. But what we know is that disadvantage is actually compounding. It's not just that you double disadvantage when you think beyond that paradigm. It's actually exponential. So for a woman who's Aboriginal, who has a disability, her disability is intense and immense. And I think of a story that I heard once from a disability advocate in Adelaide who said that she bought a soft drink and she went out in the street and took the can off and went to drink it. And someone came along and put two bob in her cents in her can. She was Aboriginal and she was in a wheelchair. And people automatically thought she was begging. So these are the sorts of extreme stereotypes that we can get when we look at intersectional disadvantage. The other thing I want to say about it is I think it's very complex to address, and we all know, I'm sure, how complex it is. When we try to think outside our immediate understandings, whether we're from family violence or sexual assault sector, the community health sector, which is, more, I think, diverse in its population focus. But nonetheless, we have our areas and programs of expertise within community health. And I remember my own experience of working in community health where we would be on intake. And you come from your own particular perspective. I came as a social worker. The physio would see problems that I wouldn't see as a physio. So we all tend to come from our own understandings and skill set. Local government is the same. We have immense diversity within local government in terms of program areas, but we have our own real paradigms that are part of our particular program areas. And what intersectionality asks us to do is to actually step outside that and start to think more laterally, to think outside our own little box, and to be able to work across different portfolio areas and different programs so that we can bring in the expertise that we need to address that exponential disadvantage. So we've got to start with ourselves. And I'm not saying if I did that exercise that I would have automatically started to think across outside the paradigm also. It's something we all have to challenge ourselves with, and we have to be aware of our own assumptions. And then we have to look to our organisations, and what are our organisations doing to think across those different lenses. Do we have a gender action plan? Do we have a disability action plan? What are we doing for culturally and linguistically diverse women? So we need to be thinking in a much more sophisticated way about these issues. And so Lara mentioned wicked problems before, and we're hearing a lot about wicked problems being about complexity and highly complex problems. And the thinking that's being done about these highly complex wicked problems is the solution is in collaboration. And we hear a lot now about social impact, collective action, collective impact. These phrases are all talking about how we come together and find a common outcome that we want to address together in order to address these problems. And I think there's a lot that we can learn from that kind of thinking. So I hope you can hold on to that now, and I'll hand over to Adele to come in with a theoretical perspective.
Thank you very much, Keran.